The UK's Labour Party has realised its long-time ambition and returned to power with an emphatic win over its rival, the Conservative Party. Well, the focus is on Keir Starmer, who will become Britain's next Prime Minister after Labour secured the parliamentary majority by crossing the 326-seat threshold. Well, results have been trickling in for the past few hours. With more than 400 seats, Labour has more than 33% of the vote, and it's been a night of redemption for the Liberal Democrats, who gained 63 seats to reach 71. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage becomes an MP as the party needs 4 MPs, nets 4 MPs. The Greens are also on 4 in their best election performance yet. The biggest casualty is the Conservative Party. They only secured 120 seats, with former Prime Minister Liz Truss losing hers. Well, earlier, Rishi Sunak made a statement at Downing Street before heading over to Buckingham Palace to hand over his resignation to the King. Now, the procedure formally ends 14 years of Tory rule in the UK. He told the public that he will step down as party leader as the Conservatives recoup.
I will shortly be seeing His Majesty the King to offer my resignation as Prime Minister. To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss. To all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success, I am sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserved. It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service. Following this result, I will step down as party leader, not immediately, but once the formal arrangements for selecting my successor are in place. It is important that after 14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds, but also that it takes up its crucial role in opposition professionally and effectively.
And for more on the new government's take on foreign policy, let's speak with Dr. Zeno Leone. He's a lecturer in Defence Studies at King's College London. Well, thanks so very much for joining us this evening. So it is certainly an uncertain geopolitical climate, and the UK's new Labour government's foreign policy will certainly be tested. So, Dr. Leone, how do you think Labour's approach to China will differ from the Conservatives?
I don't think there will be a dramatic difference for different reasons. First of all, there are structural constraints that every democracy in the West will face when dealing with China. Democracies want to be open economically, culturally, and so at the same time they need to balance that and struggle to balance that openness when it comes to security. More specifically to the UK, the Labour strategy that we have learned from the Labour Party's manifesto, it will be one of cooperate, compete, and challenge towards China. This doesn't sound dramatically different from the strategy of the Conservative Party, which says engage, align, protect. Nonetheless, we might see, given the discussions that we've heard prior to the elections, we might see more emphasis on human rights. So the Labour Party might be more vocal about human rights when it comes to China in the next few years.
So you've mentioned slight difference, maybe more emphasis on human rights. But Labour, though, they did promise that they're going to audit the whole UK-China relations. So when you hear audit, what does that mean? Does it mean some kind of a shift in trade and security policies, and also how this will impact the Indo-Pacific region?
I don't think it implies a major shift. I think the emphasis of the Labour will be to more consistently, during the audit, reaching out to foreign policy experts, scholars, but also civil servants across the different departments in an effort to try to find more consistency compared to the clear ambiguity that prevailed during the Conservative Party era. At the same time, though, we must remember that in British foreign policy, especially these days towards the Indo-Pacific, the UK seems to be very much on board, very much aligned to NATO and to this idea of connectivity between the transatlantic region and the Indo-Pacific. So most likely the United Kingdom, led by a Labour Party, will probably be on board with a NATO agenda in that regard.
Well, I want to touch on what China's response is, because from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they've issued a statement basically saying that China is hoping that a Sino-British relations can be a sort of like a win-win relationship. So you being a China expert, so what do you think China expects from this new government in order to achieve this win-win relationship?
Well, I think China, especially now that the United Kingdom is outside of the EU, probably expects to sign, to achieve some sort of agreement for a major trade deal. I suspect this will not happen under this Labour government, and probably wouldn't have happened under any other UK government. I think really crucial to this, it will be to see how the UK relationship with the United States actually it will evolve. And so we need to wait for November 4. It is possible that if Trump is going to win the election in the United States, the Labour Party might have a slightly more accommodating policy towards China, just to be more nuanced and just not to look like they are following Trump's line too much. On the other hand, should Biden win, we might see a tougher foreign policy towards China from the Labour Party, in my opinion.
And now, again, from Beijing's point of view, right? Because earlier you mentioned that, you know, with the new Labour government, there might be more emphasis on China's human rights, whether it's to do with Xinjiang and you know, that area. But how do you think Beijing will balance its desire for cooperation as well as with its concerns about what the UK will have about human rights, for instance?
I think what we have seen in recent years is that China has always reacted quite assertively through its diplomats when the UK or any other countries were criticizing it for on a human rights level. But at the same time, they will continue to pursue trade avenues, more avenues for commercial cooperations. One thing we must remember, though, is that while the Labour Party was very keen to call out on China on a genocide in Xinjiang while it was in the opposition, well, we will have to see how this stands to the test of government, because we know by looking at many other democracies, many other countries in the West, that when a party is elected into government, some of the views are softened. So that might be a good for the relationship between the UK and China. We will have to see what the Labour Party does in this regard.
Right. And also the new party, and we've talked a bit about how they intend to reset its relations with the EU. And how do you think that, you know, what do you think is going to come out of that, what that means, and how that's going to impact its diplomatic as well as trade relations with China?
Well, China would be absolutely delighted, I believe, to see eventually the United Kingdom rejoining the EU or greater integration between the UK and the EU. Certainly, rejoining the EU for the UK doesn't seem an option for many reasons for a long time to come. I think where possible, this Labour government will try to mitigate some of the implications, some of the consequences of Brexit. Brexit is a framework, after all, and it can be mitigated with more detailed policies. And we have been already seeing some of this with the previous government, to be fair, with greater UK-EU cooperation in the Indo-Pacific. Not so much on trade, though. So hopefully the Labour Party will try to mitigate that and try to come up with some agreements, lateral agreements that somehow will soften Brexit. But Brexit will not change.
Well, thanks for sharing so many pointers with us. Also, Dr. Leone was certainly looking forward to your new book that's coming out at the end of this month. It's called A New Cold War, U.S.-China Relations in the 21st Century. Thank you once again, Zeno Leone, speaking to us from London.
Thank you.